This is kind of a personal video. I don't know whether the odds of Vivek Ramaswamy actually seeing this video, but if you are watching, I really appreciate you watching. Thank you for watching, and yeah, without further ado, I guess here's my message. So I've been into politics as young as I can remember. I think my first memory of politics was, we didn't have cable TV growing up, so as soon as the PBS cartoons ended for the day, maybe around 11 o'clock on Saturday, PBS News would air on, and then I would see and I would look and I say, okay, that's Mitt Romney, that's Barack Obama, why is this state colored red, and such and so forth. And that's kind of started my rabbit hole down this line. And one thing I've learned during my time, my very short period of life, is politics is tricky. Most people I know who are in politics, especially at my age, because of things like social media and the internet, they come into it, in my opinion, opinionated instead of willing to learn. Like any other discipline, economics, politics, engineering, whatever. If you're a student of the game, you don't come in with your thoughts preconceived, though political science, political ideology, that is rewarded in the sense where a lot of people I know who come into this game, come into this field, automatically have their politics made up. That didn't really make sense to me, right? I'm here to learn. I'm here to take in everybody's perspective, and then, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and therefore I'm better off because my politics is more nuanced. But, in my relationship with Vivek Ramaswamy has been kind of interesting, right? I kind of just saw him out of nowhere run for president like many people, and then we all just kind of accepted, hey, this guy's a brilliant genius, blah, blah, blah. And then one thing turned to the next. I go to Ohio State, and he was at a Turning Point conference, and I decided to go, and I asked him a question that I kind of regret because I think there's more that I wanted to ask. But the question was about, what about Hinduism led him to the conservative movement? We have a lot of Indians in Congress, including my congressman, and especially national figures, think Nikki Haley, and such and so forth. This idea of changing your religion, changing your name to promote and to be well accepted on a national basis, being the fact that this country is predominantly Christian. I asked Vivek Ramaswamy about that, and there was a little point of pride and respect that I have for him to say, hey, you know what, I really appreciate that you are still, continuing to profess yourself as a Hindu. I appreciate that you're not changing your name to appeal to, marketing things or public relations. You take pride in your name, and that really is special to me. But later on that day last year, there was another gentleman who came up and spoke about saying, oh, if the topic of Hinduism was never brought up, you have been kept quiet about your religious faiths, and Jesus Christ is the only true God, and all this kind of good stuff. And this country was built on Judeo-Christian values. And I think about that. I think about that all the time. And the reason why I'm making this video now is because of recently he's going back on tour with Turning Point USA amid the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and people are still to this day refusing to vote for him, refusing to support him because of the color of his skin, and I think that's more so of a dog whistle. And another thing is just his Hindu beliefs, right? That, people in the Bible, it says that people who worship other gods are considered demon worshippers. So that kind of gives context as to why I'm making this video. I myself, I would say I'm a practicing Hindu. Obviously, Hinduism is an umbrella term. We see it as a way of life and an understanding about how to approach, the science of the soul and things of that nature. But I've made plenty of videos about Hinduism in the past that you can check out. But, Vivek Ramaswamy kind of dodged around the questions, and I'm kind of upset, right? He'll respond by saying, hey, it's not I'm not running for pastor of Ohio. I'm running for governor. And, I believe in one God. I believe this. And there are a lot of similarities between Christianity and Hinduism. The founding fathers said this, that, and the third, and all this kind of stuff. And this country, he insinuates that, hey, this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values, but my Hindu beliefs are compatible. To me, that's just ridiculous, So I guess this is a more personal part of the video. Hey, Vivek Ramaswamy, I know we only make about 2% of the population in America, especially those of us who were born here, just like you. As an Indian myself, you as much as I disagree with much of your politics, a lot of things, I think, I look up to you in the sense where you are the Indian guy. Maybe Cash Patel can be factored in there, but you are a representation of our people, of our belief system. And I think that carries a very big debt of responsibility because you are speaking on behalf of a far fast growing number of people and someone like me who's interested in a political career myself. I think, anytime I mention, wanting to get in politics, your name automatically gets brought up. And there's a reason for that, right? It's because of you look the way that I do. You come from the same background that I do, the stereotypical, Indian smart kid who went to Harvard and this and that, right? So on the topic of this country being founded on Judeo-Christian values, I do believe that people are entitled to their opinion, right? If you open your Bible and your conclusion is that me as a practicing Hindu, I'm a Satan worshiper, go ahead, believe that. But you don't get to say that, in my opinion. Obviously, you do get to say it, but I'm going to criticize your free speech, the content of your speech, the content of your character, as MLK Jr. would like to say, that this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. And I think that's just such dangerous rhetoric. This idea of Western values, Western traditions. It's all kind of a gobbledygook, to borrow Chief Justice Roberts' rhetoric. But, I find it hilarious that the person who wrote our Constitution, his mentor, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, he has a very famous quote that says, hey, when we were writing the Declaration of Independence, we had the choice. It was brought up in convention to say, hey, should we say these inalienable rights delivered us to by our Creator, Jesus Christ? And the overwhelmingly majority Continental Congress at the time said no. It's not up to us, right? We don't put Jesus Christ. You can say a creator God. And Thomas Jefferson, in his quote, in his autobiography, talks about how we don't make a distinction in this country, that you can practice your Christianity, your Judaism, your Islam, your Hinduism, even though there was, God knows how many, maybe like 20 Hindus in America at the time, maybe even less, maybe zero. Thomas Jefferson was still thinking about these things, and that's something I appreciate about him, that he was very ahead of his time, but is seemingly to be lost in translation, that just because there are a lot of references to God, in God we trust, that's on our dollar bill, we the people, our creator, certain unalienable rights, blah, blah, blah. The ultimate idea of being American was the idea of religious freedom, right? I can open my Constitution and look at the first goddamn amendment to say, hey, I have the free exercise of my own religion, as long as I'm not interrupting anyone else's freedom. And on top of that, Congress shall make no law that respects another religion, to say, hey, I don't know, we're going to put 10 commandments in public schools. We're going to do this. I can only think about, what might a Hindu kid in Texas, because there are a lot of them in Dallas and Houston, and just name your city, they're going to these public schools and they read that. And what are they supposed to think, right? I keep a Bible. I understand the influence that Christianity has in this country, but to say that this country was founded on the belief that we have to instill good Christian, Judeo-Christian values, whatever the heck that means these days, because that could mean a multiple different things to multiple different people. But you actually find evidence against that. And even to take it further from a biblical argument, I would say that, if you actually think about Jesus's life, people like to claim that, they're following the footsteps of Jesus. What would Jesus do is a popular phrase. If you actually read the Bible, it's who are the people that Christ surrounded himself most with. It was the misfits. It was the societal rejects. It was the people that were considered different, anomalies. So to say that we all have to confine to this country because of a set religious belief inherently goes against, in my opinion, the teaching of Christ. Obviously, that's my opinion. I'm entitled to mine. You're entitled to yours. Obviously, you can bring up the book of John to say, hey, I'm the way, the truth, the life, whatever. And that's also, part of the Bible. I'm not ignoring that. But, the free will argument is also commonly brought up in the Bible to say, hey, look, a forced donation is not a donation. You have to out of your own free will, you have to accept Christ, right? That's a very big principle. So why not apply that logic into this country and especially this government to say, okay, I still believe that Christ is the only way and you're entitled to that opinion. But to say that I'm not supposed to have free will, to say that the government is supposed to institute a religion, I think it's ridiculous. Um, and that's just what I'm going to say about that. But I've been kind of going off the walls, but I want to close with this to Vivek personally. Next time, in my opinion, if anybody were to ask you that question or ask me that question for better or for worse, I'm literally going to pull out my Constitution, because I have one, and just say, read that First Amendment and tell me where the founding fathers said that this country was built on Judeo-Christian values. That's just a buzzword that gets thrown out, right? I'm not criticizing Christianity as a religion. I'm criticizing the people who interpret the doctrine and say that, this has to be implemented to our belief system. You know, there were a lot of founding fathers who were professed Christians, but I would consider Mr. America, the guy who actually laid the foundations for this country, Thomas Jefferson. If you actually just open up his quotes, his ideas, he had a very, different thought about this. That's not to say that I think we should live in a country akin to communist Russia, where religion itself should be banned and considered immoral and considered stupid and foolish thinking. Not that at all. But you have the free will. You have the free exercise. That's not just logical. That's not even just a concept of enlightenment thinking by Thomas Jefferson, but that's a concept made by the Bible itself, arguably. But I want to say to Vivek Ramaswamy, Indian people will support you no matter what because you're Indian. But to borrow a Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. You are, for better or for worse, the national American figure for Indians. I'm not saying you have to change your politics or do anything like that, but keep that in the back of your mind, that everything you say, everything comes out your mouth, all your actions matriculate and affect people like me every single day when I'm dealing with politics. You are a representation of me. So I think that would just be extremely valuable for you to know, and I really appreciate you if you actually did take the time to watch this video. But thank you for watching. If you like the video, like the video. If you dislike it, dislike it. Feel free to comment whatever you want, and I am out.